Well, good morning. This morning I just wanted to share with you, I've mentioned it a couple times, what I call my Polymodal learning protocol. I know it sounds silly, but it's just a great Canadian by the name of Alan Paivio came up with this idea that if we listen as well as see, or, a more modern example is children that write doing their homework or in class end up retaining 20 to 40% more information. I've talked about this when it comes to memories. We found that the memories you really have to struggle for are the ones that last the longest. The experiment that I use as an example was they took two groups of people. One group they allowed all the time they needed to try to memorize a piece of poetry. The other group, they had them try and fail over and over again. And the people that had the longest retention were the people that tried and failed, not the people that had all the time in the world. So I just want to share, this is mostly about my audiobook protocol. I think if we started giving our kids and our adults both the physical book, the audiobook, and the ebook, I think we would see an exponential growth in learning. Because I use the audiobook for reading. Physical book would be like if you wanted to follow along at first so you can get better at listening to the audiobooks. And I use the ebooks because it makes it a lot easier to search within and copy and paste. So without further ado, here is my Polymodal learning protocol, the Dyslexic Superpower for exponential knowledge absorption. Well, I'm dyslexic, and I've built a way to learn, read, and integrate information faster and deeper than almost anyone. It's not fake speed reading, it's total engagement, a polymodal system I stumbled into while solving my own problems. I call it my protocol, and it's how I turned a thrift store find, some book by Alan Paivio on dual coding, into a blueprint for rewiring my brain. Here's how it works, step by step, and why it's the natural way humans should absorb knowledge. So the protocol. Start with audio. Ditch the physical book for audiobooks. Text is a flight. Fonts, lighting, page color. Audio cuts through all of that. I spent years listening, and it's made me a better reader than staring at pages ever did. Words hit your ears first, where we're wired to take them in as storytellers, not readers. I use that based on one of the foremost researchers in reading, Marianne Wolf. She argues that we're natural listeners, we're natural storytellers, but we have to add on this reading. So yes, let's teach our kids to read, but for really deep and well, for any real learning, I think we should use audiobooks. I think books really is a long-term storage vessel for this knowledge. It's not what we should be engaging with first. So next, visualize the words. This is an early stage. So actually, I would say the early stage would be listening to the audiobook and following along in the physical book. And an example I give when you can get even deeper into this, I recommend The Little Prince, Le Petit Prince, the French book. You can listen to the audiobook and follow along in the physical book. What you can even do is start listening to it in French, follow along in English, help you learn some more French and vice versa. But this is what I recommend. Initially, listen, follow along until you can get to what I was doing, which is more of an advanced stage. So visualize the words. When I started, I'd listen and picture the words on a chalkboard or a whiteboard in my head. Not my hand, my head. Now, that's funny because it missed this voice to text, right? Again, I do everything voice to text. So for some reason, it just went all ham on this. I visualized the words in my hand. I don't know where I got that weirdness. But what I'm running into here is I've had to train ChatGPT to read my voice to text properly. And I guess this new AI is just getting used to it, right? So I would visualize these words, and I went further than that. I would actually, at first, to make it immersive, I would imagine the sounds and the scraping of the chalk on the board, and you'd see the dust falling down. And on the whiteboard, you can hear the squeak of the marker. You can smell the marker. A true multimodal experience, right? It's a full sensory classroom in my mind, even as the AI said. This locks your focus. It's a meditation level concentration until the audiobook voice is all you hear. I know that sounds silly, but all it is until you're able to focus on the audiobook. The first complaint I hear is, I can't listen to audiobooks. I have a hard time focusing. Well, imagine if we let our kids off the first time they tried reading, or the first few times they tried reading, and they said, it's just too hard to concentrate. I mean, nobody would read. Come on, people. This is a skill like anything else. Have a little bit of commitment and devotion, right? So next, move while you listen. Walk, feel your steps, smell the air, hear the world. I've got arthritis, so stepping over stones, washing my feet, it's walking meditation, a Sanskrit style flow. Well, I call it Krama, but that's where that comes from. Nature's your co-teacher here. The physicality doesn't distract, it anchors you. Everything blends into the audio, amplifying it. Now, this is part of my experimentation with trauma healing. They call it EMDR, just rapid eye movement. I evolved it from sitting in an office to while you're on your walk, right? When you're having trouble, look around, experience the present. So if rapid eye movement or just recognizing your environment can rewire the brain for trauma, why can't it rewire the brain for learning? And what I'm learning is it absolutely can. So next step, we'll talk about letting it evolve. At first, you work hard, visualizing, feeling, smelling, but the brain's efficient. After years, I don't need the chalkboard anymore. Words turn into concepts directly, no decoding. The sensory frills fade, and you're left with pure focus. It's automatic now. Audiobooks on, brain engaged, world muted, but supportive. So our next step is unmask, but don't multitask. Unitask, Don't multitask. This isn't about doing two things at once. It's one thing, total immersion. Like speaking one language at a time, everything else goes secondary. Your senses don't compete, they align. It's this flow state where the audiobook's ideas become part of you, not just stuff you hear. And it is very true, because I was trying to explain that, how I find when you get fully immersed into a book, or in this case, an audiobook, you really truly become fully engaged by the story, by the words, by the ideas. It's funny how you no longer have to decode, and it just seems to just seep right into your brain. And you're experiencing, it's almost like the author's there in your brain. And this is why I think a lot of people enjoy when the author reads the book, because you really get that experience that the author is there with you, sitting there in your brain, right? I really like that idea. So why this works? This isn't random. It's how I beat dyslexia and a bigger disease I had to solve. I taught myself to read on a computer, then found audiobooks. That Paivio book just clicked it into place. Dual coding, audio, visuals. It boosts retention, but I took it further. Adding movement and senses, it cranks it up 20 to 40% more cognition than text readers get, bogged down by decoding. It's not just me. It's how humans are built. We're listeners first. Eyes alone reading is unnatural. Eyes and ears together is primal. So the proof? Well, I'm living it. I'm one of maybe a couple hundred people worldwide who've gone as deep into audiobooks as elite text readers have with books. My retention's off the charts. Complicated books, dense ideas all stick. Schools are failing. Ontario's reading rates prove it. Stuck on whole word garbage I suffered through in French. My way's better. Kids should learn through audio first, visual second, text last. I'd bet studies back this. Audio learners outpaced text sloggers every time. So, how do we use it? For you, grab an audiobook. Start simple. Visualize the words on a board. Walk while you listen. Practice till it's second nature. Watch your focus sharpen, your ideas explode. For kids, swap textbooks for audio. Teach them to imagine the story. Move while they hear it. Reading will come naturally after, not forced through pages. For the world, test this. Track retention, engagement, joy. Scale it. Books or storage. Learnings, audio first. This is my protocol, born from dyslexia, honed by necessity, proven by me. It's not just a hack, it's the future. Or it is our past that we may have forgotten. Physical books can sit on the shelf. Knowledge belongs in our ears, our steps, and in our head. So thank you. Thank you for listening once again. And I hope this finds you well, and you have a wonderful day. Happy learning. And I think that's the biggest thing we found out recently. That I've talked about this a million times over, that a tiny portion of doctors stay up to date on their studying. Right? Most professors end up forgetting their own milieu and knowing almost nothing of what has come since they were in school. But the final is dyslexia, Alzheimer's. Looks like it's a disease of atrophy of the brain. Right? We, for years, saw these apps that were brain teasers, but what we need to do is keep learning, keep engaging, keep challenging ourselves. And as a middle-aged person who has taught themselves how to read, taught themselves new languages, I can tell you there is one and only one reason why we believe it is more difficult to learn as you age. It's because we're out of practice. Learning, reading, speaking, thinking, feeling. These are all skills that we need to develop and hone over time. They're not a gift. They're something we need to engage with continuously. I think this is why the Greeks saw creativity in the form of the muses, because they really do seem like they have an external source. But I think this is what I've always talked about. We only become our truest self when we engage with our experiences, with others, with the world around us. And I think it applies to learning as much as it does to ego and self-actualization. So, on that note, again, I have to thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And, I hope to hear from you again. Have a wonderful day.